Hi guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about acne today. It's been a while since I've had this conversation, and there's the main things or the big things when you're struggling with acne and you go to either the beauty therapist or you go to the doctor and you ask them for help. And these are the things you actually don't get told by, well, and I'm not going to say by all of them because there are doctors and there are beauty therapists that do also have this knowledge or may be able to point you in the right direction. But a lot of the time we can go down these avenues and we get told a solution that actually doesn't address the underlying issues and what's really causing acne. Now, my own story, I've struggled with acne for a long time. When I came off the oral contraceptive pill when I was about 28, so 11 years ago now, I actually had this thing called essentially post-pill PCOS, and my skin went crazy because I didn't do it with any guidance or any help. And I really had a lot of problems trying to balance my hormones and heal my gut as a result of being on the pill for 10 years, because the oral contraceptive pill causes a lot of damage. And so I have been through my own journey. I also had acne a lot as a teenager. I've been through the whole cycles of it. And if I don't look after myself, or there's things going on for me, there's an accumulation effect sometimes of then it flaring up in my skin. So this is what I want to talk about today, the things that I know really drive acne. And this can also be applied for a lot of other things, but specifically today, that's what I'm talking about, and what you need to understand to actually be able to start to address these issues that are going on in your body. Because if you don't get to the underlying cause, you're going to keep coming up against it again and again and again. And this is what I have found. And when I go back to these principles, I actually find I get really good results for myself if I have a flare up. And this is everything I apply to my clients. So for those of you who don't know me, and if you're new to this group, I'm a holistic nutritionist and I'm an emotional healing facilitator. And what that means is I actually work with people with their health from a very holistic perspective of working with the biochemistry in the body and health, and also working with emotions, blocks, emotional traumas, to actually address the underlying stresses that are being held in the body that are also manifesting as disease, and looking at it from a very holistic approach. And this comes through my own experience of my own healing journey. I had a tumor in my kidney over 12 years ago, and I had to get my right kidney removed. And in that journey, really realized that there was a lot of repressed anger and unresolved trauma that I was holding on to, and it manifested as a cancer in my body, and had to go on this healing path. But also realizing that as I was going on this healing path, I got into nutrition and food and understanding the gut. How do I not end up in hospital again? How do I not get sick again? How do I not get another tumor? How do I not lose another organ? It was very fear-based to begin with, but I fell in love with food and actually taking my power back and really realizing I had a lot of power. And then on that journey, I had all these hormonal balances and actually was like, hang on a minute, I've got to really get to work on this, which is why I came off the oral contraceptive pill, because I learned how bad that was for my body, how much damage it was doing to my gut. And as a result, when if I really want to get to my hormones, I've got to do this. In that journey, also then started to learn particular techniques and emotional techniques for my own healing. And then was like, oh my God, this is a game changer. I need to teach this. And so now when I'm working with people, because some of the things I'm going to talk about, such as stress and traumas, can have such an impact on the body, I really didn't get on top of my own hormones and learn to really heal my body from a root cause perspective, until I was looking at it from the whole picture, including the emotional nervous system regulation work. In other words, learning to regulate myself and learning to heal my traumas. That's it. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is all these factors that can impact it that they don't talk to you about when you go into the GP's office. and they will usually only ask you a few solutions. And if you go to see the beauty therapist, yes, they will provide you with excellent, most of the time, good skin advice, but it's still not addressing the underlying cause. And so that I'm not discrediting that at all. There's some beautiful like therapists out there that work with skin, that really understand the skin really well. It's amazing. They're needed, that care, that level of care is needed and understanding is needed, but we also need to go deeper than that and go, okay, where's that coming from in the first place? So when we're talking about acne, there's a few things we need to know. We need to look at what are the underlying drivers. And the first underlying driver that is big mama is inflammation. And inflammation with any type of health condition is always there. If there's something going on in the body that is inflammation, often it will end in itis. If there is chronic inflammation, and so you can figure it out from the word, but there is always a level of inflammation. We want to go, okay, where is the inflammation coming from? Now, there's three big main points or main areas in my experience that inflammation will come from. Number one is the gut. Number two is blood sugar and insulin, and number three is stress. And so when we're talking about the gut is the foundation of our health, and there's a direct connection between the gut and our skin. And we need our gut is a detoxification organ, but so is our skin. And so often if our gut is not working properly, things will start to manifest and come out the skin. And if we're not eliminating correctly at the right rate and actually removing what we need, there can be the toxicity component. That's number one. The other component part of this is, and that also includes clearing hormones and what else needs to be cleared so that then things aren't out of balance. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But when we're talking about the gut in general, what we need to understand is where the driver of inflammation is coming from in terms of the gut. And this comes down to understanding that this is the outside of our body. And actually, we've got these cells that line the inside of our small intestine that are like bricks. And they're actually got these tight junctions like that. They're designed to open and close. And when we eat food, they open, that we release a chemical actually called zonulin, and it opens them a little bit to when we break our food down to the smallest molecule, it will then go into our gut and will go into our bloodstream, and then it'll be taken to our cells. But what happens is when our gut is not working properly, is the integrity of these cells actually become unhealthy. They're not as healthy as what they should be. And these little junctions don't become tight. And so as a result, I'm going to draw it for you in a minute. These things, we eat our food and then it goes into our bloodstream, and then our immune system sees it and attacks. So it's a little bit like, let me just see this. I'm just going to draw it like this. So here are the bricks, like this. Here is our small intestine. We eat food, it gets broken down. It goes into our stomach and it has a pH of about 2. So it should be really acidic, our stomach acid. Often people don't make enough stomach acid, and so they don't break down their food correctly. And then over time, we start to not break our food down correctly. Now, in a healthy gut, we break our food down. It doesn't get broken down in the stomach. It starts to get broken down in the small intestine, but it gets mushed up and unraveled. Like the proteins get unraveled in our stomach, and then we'll go into the small intestine. What will happen is things will then go through these tight junctions into our blood, and then it goes to our cells. But what happens if it's not healthy is it starts to, these junctions are not as tight, and we have food molecules and things that aren't, they're not broken down correctly, as well as chemicals and toxins like herbicides and pesticides, other chemicals in our environment, heavy metals, bacteria, things like that, that aren't being either killed off or broken down correctly, and they'll go into the bloodstream, and then our immune system will see it and it attacks. and you can't see that very well because the light's not good, but the immune system sees it and it attacks. And so what happens is, this is where long-term systemic inflammation starts. Now, that is the really super simple version of that. There's a lot more complications to that, obviously, but for the sake of this is what you need to understand. And so if this is where the driver of inflammation is, the foundation of our gut needs to be solid for things to actually, for our gut to be keeping out what needs to be kept out, to absorb what it needs to absorb. In other words, we also absorb vitamins and minerals, which can also impact the state of our skin. So, this is also how deficiencies can happen, because if we're not breaking our food down correctly, it's like, here's the question: are we breaking it down? Is it what we're taking in? Or is it also an absorption issue? Is it the state of this is not healthy? It will not absorb as well as it should. There's this catch-22, and we've got a lot of mucus and other things happening in here as well that needs to be healthy. The integrity of this cell needs to be healthy as well. And there's lots of things that can impact that. Vitamins and minerals and specifically deficiencies, things like zinc, vitamin A. We need those for the function of these cells to be really healthy. We need good essential fatty acids. We to have good health of our skin, to have also the barrier layer of our skin, but also the health of every single cell of our body. We need magnesium. We need to be able to regulate blood sugar levels for all these functions to happen. We need zinc for our stomach acid functions to be correct. There's this whole network, and it's all interlinked. And so it's really important for that to also be addressed, because if we have deficiencies, for example, in zinc, in vitamin A, in vitamin D, all these things, when I'm talking about deficiencies as well, by the way, guys, I'm talking about optimal levels. And so optimal levels are actually like, here's when you're at the lab and someone says you get your blood test and the doctor looks at it and goes, you're fine. You're fine. But actually your results might be here. This is the range. And this is really just the average of everyone that's tested and what normal is. It doesn't mean it's optimal. Optimal range might be here. You want to be here. And so we want to go, what is optimal for you to have optimal health? How much does the body really need? And this is I take this from multiple opinions because they can also vary, but the range ultimately is a lot narrower than what the ranges on the lab sheet, on the labs are for reference ranges. Yeah. And so we're looking at it going, okay, well, has the body got the right tools, the right foundation to heal? Are we absorbing what we need to absorb? Are we eliminating what we're eliminating? In other words, are we constipated, or is there diarrhea, or are we actually absorbing our food, and are we actually moving it through and detoxifying correctly? That comes back to also the liver and the gut, and they're connected directly to our skin. And so when someone has skin issues, I'm always like, what's happening with the gut? Where is the inflammation coming from? I need to know that, right? So that's number one with inflammation. Number two is blood sugar. And this is really important because particularly with skin and acne, because unregulated blood sugar levels can really impact our hormones, particularly insulin, because it will cause more testosterone to be made in the body, more androgen hormones, which is the group of male hormones that we make. Our ovaries make them, and they're also made in top layers of the skin. In the blood, there's different types. So when these are made, they actually cause more oil to be. It's a insulin growth factor 1 is what is the hormone is called, and it's the perfect storm because it increases sebum, it increases skin turnover. So turnover of the cell of the skin, and it also increases inflammation. And so from a skin perspective, what happens is we make more oil, we make more turnover of cells, the hair follicle gets infected, and then we get an infection, which is then a breakout. And so in whatever form that might be, whether it's a small pustule, whether it's a cyst, the variation can change. Where it shows up on our body also will indicate what can be going on. A lot of skin breakouts around the jawline particularly, or chin, can indicate unregulated blood sugar levels and an issue with sugar or carbohydrate, and your blood sugar levels are going all over the place, and there could be a level of insulin resistance. When people have a condition known as PCOS, that is an androgen-driven condition, can be also estrogen dominant, but an androgen-driven condition is directly connected to insulin. Not always the only thing that's going on, but they are very much correlated with insulin resistance. And so this is why people with PCOS have a lot of symptoms such as acne, excess hair growth, oftentimes excess weight, not always, depends on the type of PCOS, but the excess androgen is a problem. And so looking at it going, okay, how do we actually, is this happening? And what's the levels of blood sugar levels? So dairy can actually increase insulin growth factor 1 as well, and inflammation. And so a lot of the time with people with skin, I get them off dairy. Sometimes people are okay with goat and sheep, but having excess amount of dairy and sugar, wheat, refined carbs, including things like healthy snacks such as dried fruit, this will spike blood sugar. So really paring it back to really having no added sugar in your diet, or very little added sugar in your diet in your day-to-day life, being very careful. There is lots of things as well out there on the market that are very sneaky with where hidden sugar is hidden, including things like those pre-baked canned alcoholic beverages. I went camping over the weekend, and a friend of mine was looking at she said, oh, should we get, like, what are we going to do? Do we want to have a drink? Blah, blah, blah. I'm really having very minimal alcohol, and now I'm not having any alcohol for the next couple of months. And I was like, it's okay, maybe a glass of red, maybe we'll take some non-alcoholic stuff. She said, we were talking about maybe want to have a margarita. We make margaritas without sugar. It doesn't happen a huge amount for me, but she sent me a thing. She said, oh, maybe I can get those cans. And I said, okay, is there sugar in the mug? And she Googled it. There was 24 grams of sugar in this can of margarita, or whatever the hell it was. I actually don't even know if it was margarita, whatever it was. And she Googled it and went, holy shit. I was like, that's got more sugar in it than a Coke. That was a no for me, hard no. So you've got to be careful. And with things like alcoholic beverages, they don't have to put it on the label, is what I've noticed. They don't have to put the ingredients on the label. You've got to look it up online, which is really annoying. So if you really want to address the underlying issue with insulin resistance, balancing your hormones in general is always going to require you to quit sugar, period. And if you are addicted to sugar, you can, people who have that sugar addiction, you can crave sugar when you're not hungry. There's also an emotional need for sugar, like looking at how that sugar is actually feeding that ability to not feel, to not sit in your emotions. It's filling a void and comfort. And if you are also hiding sugar from the people you live with, or you're feeling pissed off at me by telling you this, that you quit sugar, there is an addiction element as well, because it binds to opioid receptors in our brain. And you need a plan and you need support, because there's a few things happening. There's things happening with the biochemistry. There's also things happening from a emotional point of view a lot of the time with people with sugar addiction and insulin resistance. And it can be really freaking hard. And this is where also coming in underneath and going, okay, we need the tools to support you, to start to support you so your nervous system is regulated. Because when we also really stress, or we're in that heightened state of alarm, we need quick energy, because cortisol will always require quick energy, because from a primal point of view, the purpose of cortisol, like quick amounts of cortisol, is to keep us safe, to run away from that tiger or that bear. and we need quick energy. So when we're constantly stressed, sometimes people will crave the sugar to get the quick energy, right? If we keep going down that trajectory for a long period of time, this is when this dysfunction between our adrenal glands that sit on top of our kidney, our hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and there's this dysfunction that happens between how they communicate to each other. So the other note on this is, so that this is where we're talking about stress and stress management. But back to the sugar bit, you know, quitting sugar is really important. It's not the same as going low carb. And sugar is going to be harder naturally to quit if you're eating dairy and you're eating wheat, because that will also spike your blood sugar levels, and it's generally harder, I find. Just intermittent fasting can be a really helpful way as well to develop that improve your insulin resistance. In other words, eating in a smaller window. With women and hormonal conditions, I don't really recommend going over the 15 or 16-hour fasting mark, because it starts to get into very murky water, or it could also impact your hormones and cause more stress on the body. It can impact our cycles. You've got to be very careful. If you have thyroid issues going on, it's not advisable. It can actually make your thyroid slow down and go worse, which I have seen with women. So there needs to be a level of really understanding what's happening in your body for you, so that you're making the right decision. Exercise, high intensity exercise is also going to help, because your muscles become more sensitive to insulin. So training helps with insulin resistance, particularly weight-bearing exercise or high-intensity exercise. The other thing is the oral contraceptive pill can actually make insulin resistance worse. So the irony is, a lot of people go to the GP, they've got PCOS or they've got acne, they get put on the oral contraceptive pill, which, by the way, totally takes your hormones offline. You don't ovulate. It doesn't address the underlying issue. It just takes your hormones offline. So of course your skin will stop breaking out because you're not ovulating, and a lot of the testosterone is made by your ovaries, and then there is this imbalance that is not being addressed because it's just being deleted. Essentially, you go off it, you'll get the same problem, and it can make insulin resistance worse, which is ironic, right? So it is really important to clean up your diet, to work on your gut. This is the foundation of getting that right. It also has massive impacts on mood and cognitive function. So getting this with any type of issue is really important. The other part, as I was talking before around stress, is, you know, looking at your emotional triggers, your relationship to food with sugar, also looking at your default, your home away from home, because when we're in that heightened state of alarm and we're in fight or flight and we don't feel safe in the body, we make huge amounts of cortisol. And this has a knock-on effect on our gut. The way it degrades the lining of the gut, it changes our microbiome, which is that little forest that lives in our gut that has a direct correlation, impact on all the neurotransmitters we make, such as serotonin. A huge amount of serotonin, about 70% of our serotonin, is made in the gut. It's transported to the brain by the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve works properly when we are feeling calm and relaxed and safe. That's our rest and digest mode. It's also known in polyvagal theory as ventral. And so when we feel safe, we digest our food. We, will be able to absorb our nutrients. If we're not eating in a state where we feel safe, we're always in that hypervigilant state of alarm. A lot of people I talk to, they're like, I know I'm always in fight or flight. It's there, the background alarm. And when we're talking about background alarm, what we're talking about is I don't feel safe in my body. And a lot of the time, this is where the unprocessed traumas and emotions are stuck in the body and need to be processed and moved to actually heal. And I can be a testament for this, because when I had my kidney out and had my tumor, I had all this repressed anger in my body. It manifested as a tumor. So did my skin. And so my skin was also an element of me, my stress hormones, being super stressed, and not being able to process, not feeling safe in my body, never feeling like enough, always having to do. And it's been really hard work to, really had to chip away at it to actually start to really work on my nervous system, to feel more calm, to feel more safe, to feel more centered. And so that's the reality. And so we need someone to guide us through and be able to process that. And a lot of the problem as well is that when we go to the doctor, and a lot of people that I work with, by the way, that have anxiety, that have acne, also experience anxiety, or they have a big, deep sense of unworthiness and a sense of not being able to express, feeling suppressed, and having a lot of suppressed anger. And inflammation can be suppressed anger, and it's like it often explodes out of the body. This not feeling seen and heard, not feeling worthy enough, and how it manifests in skin is this repressed, these repressed emotions that are literally coming out on the skin, coming out with the skin. And so it's really important that we have to start to learn some tools to process that, to clear that, to heal that. And it has to be a bottom-up approach, not a top-down approach. What does that mean? A lot of the time we'll go to therapy, or we'll get a mental health plan, or we'll, be put on antidepressants. Antidepressants will numb your emotions. It does not help you process. It doesn't mean that they're not needed at times, but it does not address the underlying root cause. It just numbs you out. So the problem still stays there. And what happens is when we don't work through this, we can talk about it and bypass it and not want to talk about all the problems, but we've actually got to learn to feel it and have someone guide us through and find the right process to actually help us learn, first of all, how to do that yourself, and also see how to calm your nervous system down, or learn tools to help you feel safe in your own body. Now, I often have people say, I don't know what that means. I'm like, yeah, because you haven't been safe in your own body for so long, and you're dissociated, because when this is really uncomfortable, our home away from home is to go up into our head and let there be chatter, because that's a lot safer, or we freeze and go and become immobilized, because that is our protection mechanism. So often our self-sabotaging behaviors that we do, even skin picking, which can be an element of self, like infliction on self, or a release that needs to happen because we're not giving that release to ourselves in healthy constructs. And so this is a big process with this. And so I'm going on about this a lot, but I know it's really, 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 really important in conjunction with all the other stuff. And, not everyone wants to hear that. We're in this society where everyone wants a quick fix. We want the lotion and the potion. And there's lots of things that I have found also topically that do really help from a skin point of view, and experimenting with what works for you. It all takes time to decide, to figure that out. I often find people overwash their skin, put too much on their skin, all of that sort of stuff. So there's this combination of things that need to be really approached. And when you go and talk to someone about it, like a therapist, someone at the beautician, yeah, they'll treat it topically. That would be great, but it's still like what's going underneath the surface. And when we're going back to stress management and learning, what else is causing the stresses, learning healthy ways to also express yourself, to ask for things from people around you that you love, set boundaries. Setting boundaries isn't just saying no, it's also for your needs to be met and making requests. And finding healthy ways to be present, to be in your body, to actually get out of your head, and whether that be sitting with your emotions and processing, or moving your body, or using exercise or dance as an element. There's also an element of food, when we go back to the food, that can also impact our stress and the way that we respond to stress, meaning you know, the way that we feel about ourselves, the way that our gut is functioning, how much serotonin we're making, you know, the balance of neurotransmitters will have a direct impact on our mental health, and particular foods that can actually cause more cortisol. For example, sugar, caffeine is a big one. And sugar and caffeine are the two big ones. So when our blood sugar levels go up, we do technically make more cortisol. Sometimes when people are really sensitive to caffeine, this can also be a problem. I know for me, my balance is just having a little bit of coffee. So if I make myself a coffee in the morning, most of it's decaf, maybe a little bit of caffeinated at the moment. Some days it's decaf or totally decaf. Some days it's not, like just experimenting. Maybe it's sometimes a deep green tea. Maybe I sometimes have ones where I completely go totally off. And my dog wants to go out the door, he's going to have to wait. So that's a lot. I've just like given you a big dump. But if this is you and you're like, oh my goodness, this is me, I've struggled with skin for so long, it has been such a problem. If this, what I'm saying with you resonates and you're feeling really stuck and frustrated, please send me a DM or reach out to me and just saying, yeah, like, what's the next step? And if you are interested in, you know, now taking it to another level and going, yeah, I need some help, I'm ready to actually really get to the root cause, write root cause in the comments, and I'll get back to you, and we'll tee up a time just to have a quick chat and see if I can help you, if I would be the right fit. Completely free to have that little chat. And if you've got any questions about anything I've said, please just comment in the comments below and I'll answer them for you. I hope you found that helpful, and have a beautiful day, and I will see you again soon. Bye.